Welcome back to Shop Talk. With the visible transformation of Orion complete, we now begin to add the less visible but equally important interior details that make this truck a highly functioning, live-in overlanding machine.
Okay, now that I found my trusty work light, we're gonna try to tackle a project on our new Tundra today. I need to put our normal fuse box that we put in all of our trucks inside the interior. So I need to figure out where I want to put it, because the battery is on the passenger side instead of driver's side, and where to route it through. So this is the first time I've ever torn into a brand new Tundra. Not too sure what to expect or where things are gonna go or how easy it's gonna be. So that's what we're gonna try to do. I'm gonna try to at least get the fuse box interior power wired in. And then if all goes well, maybe start looking at mounting the ham radio in there. We have a Group 31 size battery here. Usually it's on the driver's side. Looking at everything, I think once this battery is removed, it's easy access to the grommet through the firewall. So now the next question is how hard will it be to get to the other side of that grommet? So I need to look at that too. But I feel like it'll make the most sense to try to go in passenger side versus driver's side because the battery's right here. So even though the battery is over there, the driver's side is still a better option. It's easier to get to versus passenger side. Passenger side has more stuff under the dash, more things kind of blocking it. There's a better spot for the fuse box on the driver's side. So just make runs from the battery over to here into the cab. This will be called interior fuse box. And now I'm gonna heat shrink that one. There we go. And that's a really robust way to label your wires. Takes a little bit of extra time, but man, if you have to go back and troubleshoot, it's well worth it. So another Shop Talk top tip, if you're gonna be doing a lot of wiring on your truck, invest in a fishing cable. These things are amazing. It's a spool of just really stiff, flat wire that you can pull out whatever length you need. Has a little loop on the end. This is really easy to push through a grommet or anywhere that you need to feed a wire. Because it's stiff, it's not gonna bend or fall down and go out of line for you. You can aim it, essentially, but you can push it through a grommet, tape your wire on, and then just pull it back through. Oh baby, it went. Also, I will also note another tip. So I always leave the fuse out of the main power wire until that's like the last thing I hook up. That way I can hook it up to the battery, not worry about having hot wires in the cab. The fuses are the last thing to go in any install. So we are gonna be installing an ICOM 5100A. We run these radios in all of our trucks. We just really love the functionality. They have GPS, D-Star, dual band, 50 watts of power, tons of customization. And in here, it comes with nice heavy duty power cable that is also fused, but with the fuse box, that won't really matter. Then it has magnetic mounting plate for the head unit. So this is already pre-drilled for ram ball mounts, the square ram ball, or you could do one of their single ones. And then it has two magnets that bolt to the back of this, and then it'll click on and off magnetically, which is pretty cool.
As with our past installs of ICOM radios, we determined that the best mounting place for the brain unit and the speaker unit is under the seat.
Okay, precise measurements, cut that. So now I'm going to use their plug-in they already have. Then this is going to go to the fuse box. I'm going to loom it, hide it all, plug it in, be good to go.
With the head unit securely installed, we temporarily connect power to ensure everything is functioning correctly.
Nice. On adapt mode, default mode. What's going on, guys? Today we are going to be wiring our Adapt E-Series light bar on our Tundra. We put it on a few days ago on the roof rack. We were originally going to wire it into our Red Vision system because that's going to be our switch system inside the cab. But we were looking at the wiring diagram and it's got multiple modes that we don't believe will be able to work with our Red Vision. So we're just going to use their factory supplied harness and switch system to turn it on and off basically. And their switch is just a standard rigid switch with a bunch of prongs on the back. It has a on and off, an adapt mode, and default mode. So the default is basically it's just on all the time. And then it also has the adapt mode where it has a built-in GPS. So if you're going slow, it's a wide field of view. If you're going a lot faster, it'll narrow down on its own, or you can just override it with just a normal switch. So pretty cool system. It's their more affordable eco line of adapt bars. Their wiring harnesses are always really well made. We're gonna have to extend this one for where the battery position is on the Tundra. Has the 2 relays, the power and ground to the battery, and then the lead to go to the light bar, and then the pre-installed spade connectors for the switch inside the cab. So I'm gonna run the wire from the passenger side. I'm gonna extend it over to the driver's side into the cab. The rest of it, we're gonna go up onto the roof rack. It should be a fairly plug and play system. So we did upgrade our factory battery to a Group 31 Odyssey Extreme. The Group 31s though, the issue that we ran into was that the power and grounds are needing to be switched basically when you put them on passenger side. So we had to put our battery in backwards so the power and grounds would line up with the leads from the truck. Not a huge deal, just kind of threw us for a loop, but we got it installed. So now we're gonna be bringing our wiring harness, power and ground that's already fused. I'm gonna extend it a little bit so we can bring it around. We're gonna try to tuck everything behind the fender here. So I'm waiting on a package, and what it is, I made this mounting plate here out of an old Mountain Hatch tailgate cover that we had around. It actually makes really good material for making mounting plates. So I have this bolted in here, and the idea is I'm gonna have a power and a ground bus bar mounted right here. So it'll be a power and ground lead from the battery to here. There's a massive void back in here that all the wires are gonna go tucked into. And because we're building this truck with international travel in mind, there's a chance that it's gonna need to be on a container for over a month easily. So the idea is that power lead is gonna have a big breaker on it. So when we go to ship them, we just hit the breaker, and then everything except for the factory systems that the engine needs to start will be completely cut off, and there won't be any parasitic draw over time. So the Red Vision, the house battery, everything will be disconnected from the main start battery. So then the battery, as long as it's in good topped off condition, it should be able to sit for months without any issues.
So I'm working on the fog light install. This is a rigid SAE compliant fog light that's gonna go in the CBI bumper. I learned something right now. I should put the light on the bracket first before I put it all the way in there, because I can't reach up above and get the light bracket attached to that bracket from the inside. So a little bit of disassembly and reassembly. If you haven't taken it apart at least once, you're probably not done. It's in my experience.
This is my first rigid fog light install, so I'm learning which direction this is supposed to point.
Probably should do this like standing up instead of laying on the ground.
So what we're gonna do is just use the OEM fog light plug. We should probably test that to make sure that's the fog light first.
Pretty sure.
But we're pretty sure it's the fog light. So we're just gonna put the rigid male end. The light has the female end, so we'll just put the male end on this end, and then those will just turn on and off with the fog light switch on the stock inside. So no separate switches, no other kind of wiring. About the simplest wiring you can do. All I'm doing is just looming the extension piece. The factory sleeve that Rigid has their harness in is more than adequate. So the relays we'll just tuck up underneath somewhere. This is gonna go through the firewall to the switch. It's gonna use more wiring, but I think the cleanest way is to go down the backside underneath and then into the engine bay and set up the A-pillar.
I realized that the real way to do this is with smaller hands. So I hired Eli. Extremely expensive rate of free to tighten down the nut for me. Again, lesson learned, install your fog lights before you put the bumper on the truck.
You're doing the Lord's work. You're actually doing my work, I guess. Yeah, I can feel you making progress. You might be here till tomorrow, but
Okay. I'm good with that.
I'll bring you dinner.
Okay.
You just keep turning the nut.
Finally got it loomed, all billion feet of it. Nah, it wasn't that bad. So we have the 10 gauge power, 10 gauge ground, and then a 12 gauge signal for the GPS. I just matched the gauge of wire because it's just sending a signal to turn on and power the GPS. So didn't need to run a 10 gauge. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
All right, so LED bulbs are polarity sensitive. You can't hook them up positive and negative backwards. So we need to make sure we connect the correct positive negative. When I put Rigid's connector in place of the OEM connector, I gotta make sure red goes to positive and black goes to negative. The easiest way for me to find negative is check continuity between the negative pin and body ground. So I'm just gonna guess. I'm gonna put one pin on one side of my connector, and I'm gonna find body ground, so like a big bolt.
We're gonna go that.
That beep means I have continuity between my pin in my left hand and the body. So the left side of this OEM connector is negative or body ground. So I've got the Rigid connector spliced into the OEM wires. I haven't finished heat shrinking this yet because I want to make sure I did it right. So this is the moment of truth. Tanner, you got the fog lights on?
No, not yet.
Okay, he's gonna turn on the fog lights and I'm gonna plug it in.
Fog lights should be on.
Fog lights is on, okay, here goes the connector. Oh my goodness, it's so bright. It works. Okay, good.
Good.
It works.
Great, thank you.
Nice.
Now we can heat shrink.
So now I just need to run this underneath the frame, hook it up to the wiring harness, and then we'll be able to run the switch wires through the firewall, hook up the switch inside, and we should be done. Getting the wires where we need them. So this is the Rigid end of the wiring harness, pulled through. So I have the wire routed through the fender. Relays are tucked behind here. So in theory, there's only going to be the one wire going into the firewall, the other going over the battery. We'll be done with this install.
We use the OEM location on the dash to the left of the steering wheel to drill out a spot for the light bar switch. Doing so, we keep the factory finish look intact, and that's the XO way.
So my idea here is to eliminate all the leads and wires, though most of the stuff's going to be going to the Red Vision. I want to try to eliminate as much as I can going straight to the battery. So what I'm doing is I'm putting it into a separate spot. Because the battery is so tucked away, this will be easier to get to, service. The leads will be able to come in through the fender, so there won't be a bunch of leads in here. And for international travel, I'm going to be able to put a disconnect between them. So then it'll be able to disconnect all the accessories hooked to here, leaving just the OEM battery stuff remaining. And the disconnect will just be a breaker. I'll probably just Velcro it to the fuse box lid here with enough room that I can take it off, remove the lid to get to the fuses, but then it'll just have a positive to here, the positive coming out to this guy right here. This is also gonna be a fuse in itself. Everything going to the positive here will be fused right here, but this will also be fused. So now I think we're ready to bring our rigid power and ground over and connect it. Okay, so let's test it. Moment of truth. I'm gonna engage the breaker. It's good. Oh, it's on. Okay, so the switch is in the on position apparently. Okay, so off is in middle. Then it's either up is on, and then down is GPS, or the other way around. I'll have to figure that one out. Now it's a matter of cleaning it up. There's covers that go on here. There's a little shield that goes in here. And we'll show you guys what it looks like when it's all done. We're gonna be adding to it later, but for right now, I'm gonna put it all back, clean it up, so we can move on to the next project.
Well, there you have it. Join us next time on another Shop Talk.